I'm Marissa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, and this is The Next Page. Marissa, how are you?
I'm good. The sun was shining today, so I am happy.
That's good. You get sunshine, and it brightens up people's days.
Mm-hmm.
And it really doesn't seem like January.
No, it's nice for me.
But I hear that, well, probably by the time this gets released,
Mm-hmm.
it might be back to winter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. But I also noticed that when I left work today at about 5 after 5, it was brighter outside.
Yes.
So the days are getting longer, and summer's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm. I just keep thinking, if I busy myself through the winter, that spring and summer will be here before I know it.
Before we know it. It's all a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you noticed that there's a lot of angry people around?
I have, and I think I've talked about this on here, that I've actually had to stop listening to the news, watching the news,
Yep.
reading the news, spend a lot less time on Facebook.
Yep.
Because it was getting me down. Just reading it or hearing it, seeing it, it was causing a lot of anxiety, and
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wrote about. That's what my post was about this morning. My title was, don't just be frustrated, do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself getting really frustrated, really angry at what was going on. And so I have started to post more positive, uplifting Instagram posts. Thankfully, you follow me, so you're seeing some of the ones that I've been posting.
I am.
And I came across a quote. Actually, I heard John Maxwell say it. I was watching a training, and he said, "We shouldn't be frustrated by the magnitude of the problem. We should be challenged by the fact that we can do something in our area at our time with the people that are around us."
Mm-hmm.
And that just really spoke to me. Stop whining, stop complaining, do something.
Mm-hmm.
And so really what I wanted us to talk about, I'm gonna mention, part of my post, which how a custodian in a school changed a young man's life. But I also want us, when I'm done sharing the story of Nick, I want us to brainstorm, how can people make a difference? So the story about Nick Vujicic is a 37-year-old young man, and he's about 6 or 8 months younger than our oldest son, Mike. And the first time I saw Nick was when Nick was a toddler, probably a year old, a little over a year old, because Mike would have been like 9 months. So Nick would have been maybe a year and a half old. And our family and Nick's family had both gone to a church conference in Virginia. And what startled me the most about Nick was Nick has no arms and no legs. He only has a torso. He has... he calls it a flipper. It's kind of like a large toe or something that literally he can maneuver himself around in. And as you can imagine, growing up in a public school in Australia or anywhere with no arms and no legs, I cannot fathom what his life was like. And to hear Nick tell the story, at one point he was contemplating ending his life, and a custodian said to him, "Nick, someday I think you could be a motivational speaker." Now, the custodian didn't know that Nick had contemplated ending his life. But those few words from that custodian put a seed in Nick's heart. And Nick literally travels the world today. He's written some best-selling books. He's toured in over 52 countries. He's addressed 7 different governmental agencies around the world. He literally has spoken to millions of people about enjoying life. One of his quotes was, "If I can encourage just one person, then my job in this life is done." So Nick is an ambassador of encouragement. He has some connection with the John Maxwell team. And really what got me thinking about it was I actually saw him at a funeral a couple weeks back, where I had gone. My wife's first cousin was tragically killed in an automobile accident, and Nick traveled from California to Akron, Ohio, just to be at the calling hours for his dear friend. And even for us to travel, okay, we got in a car. Nick needs people to help him get there. But he still gets there. And it's just when you're around him, you cannot help but be encouraged. everybody he comes in contact with, he encourages. So, and I'll put some links in our show notes, but, Nick Vujicic, his first book was Life Without Limbs. And he's written a couple others since then, but just, he's such an encouragement to me. He's an encouragement to anybody else. And I thought, wow, if he could be an encouragement to people, what's my excuse? It's easy for me to walk around, to pick up the phone and call somebody. He can't pick up a phone, but yet he finds ways to reach out to people in encouragement. So for me, he was an inspiration, and I'm hoping you and I can kind of think of ways that other people can do the same things. You said that you did take a peek at a little bit about his life. What struck you when you saw it?
It just, reading his story, and I went on his Instagram, and the first thing I saw on his Instagram really was like his zest for life.
Yep.
And his family. You mentioned here that he's got 4 children.
Yep.
And you can like feel his passion through Instagram, and that he is passionate about encouraging others, and he isn't, taking his life for granted. He's really using it to do good. Right.
He had one of his quotes was, "There's no point in being complete on the outside when you're broken on the inside." So just, you're right, this zest for life, and takes every day as a gift and looks for ways to make a difference in people's lives. So how are ways that you think the average person could make a difference?
I think there's a lot of ways. It is simple as just smiling at people. You never know like who's having a bad day, and like your smile cheered them up, or like holding the door for someone, even if it's like we tend to hold the door for people who are maybe pregnant or elderly or carrying something, but like everyone loves to feel like someone cares, and they hold the door for them instead of letting it slam in their face because you don't have the 2 seconds it takes to hold it open.
Sure.
Like I know at the grocery store, there have been times when someone will see me like frantic with like a really big overflowing cart. Maybe I have a kid with me, and they're like, "Here, just come in front of me in line."
Yep.
And it's so simple to do, but it has meant so much to me in those times, because I remember one woman, she turned to me, she said, "I know you're on borrowed time," because I had my newborn like strapped to me. I'm sweating in wagons with my cart, just like hoping that I can like get through checkout, get to my car, get home, unload all before the baby freaks out. And so it's those little things, but then there's also some other things that are still not immense, but volunteering. And it doesn't have to be countless hours of volunteering. Just when you have the opportunities, there are plenty of organizations that can use your time and talents in a variety of ways. I mean, I don't even know where to start. You do a quick Google search, and I'm sure that you will find an organization that fits your interests, your passions. For example, I volunteer with the CNY Diaper Bank. So anyone who is interested in supporting babies and families, that's a great organization to volunteer with. And it's very easy, and it's something that I can do with my family. I can bring my kids. And it's like an hour of my time means so much to those people. And an hour isn't that much of my time.
Exactly.
But I can do a lot with that hour.
Exactly. I just, while you were talking, I pulled up my iPad and I just typed in United Way CNY. And then there's Volunteer CNY. It's a United Way initiative. And you literally, there's just agency after agency. After school tutors are needed. Adult literacy tutors are needed. Vera House, the Newland Center, Northside Learning Center, Arise. Here's the Diaper Bank right here, CNY Diaper Bank. The list just goes on and on. And all you have to do is make yourself available. And like you said, maybe you don't have a lot of time, but an hour. We had someone from our church that was up at Van Dyne on their rehab floor, and just going up and walking the halls and greeting people. Sometimes they just need people that would sit, maybe not on the rehab floor, but sit and do a jigsaw puzzle with someone.
Right.
People that literally have no one. The other thing I was thinking about when you're talking about like the grocery store, sometimes you're pulling in and out of a parking place and everybody has to rush to get that one. Let somebody else have the parking place. Give somebody the extra few moments at a stop sign and let somebody else go first. One of the ones too because we always get so amped up when we're behind the wheel, the road rage thing. And I've noticed this too. Sometimes like I don't mean to pull out in front of somebody. It was just an accident. But you get this scowl from them. And then I realized how bad I feel. So what I try to purposefully do is if someone does that to me, I just smile and wave to them. Like, you didn't hit me. It's okay. I didn't hit you.
Yep.
But that one moment. So if we think about going back to my friend Nick, what if the custodian hadn't encouraged him? What would the world be missing today if Nick would have taken his own life? What people has Nick touched that wouldn't have been touched? And I remember hearing some conversations about what Mother Teresa was like. And somebody said to her, like, how do you cure world hunger? And she said, you feed a person, one person. And here's something that I never thought of until a few years back. I heard about it when I was visiting my family in Florida, that, a lot of events, our church events, there's a lot of food left over. What do we do with the food? Well, what they do down there is there's a firehouse down the street. They'll take the leftover food to the firehouse. These first responders love the fact that they didn't have to cook a meal that night. So there's so many things you can do. Yeah. I think the only thing that limits our ability to make a difference is our own creativity. Or not getting out of our comfort zone. You're going to be uncomfortable when you do it. My mom, when she was a nurse, she started out as a delivery room nurse. She kind of worked both ends of the gamut of life, so to speak. So she started out as a delivery room nurse, and she ended her career at Van Dyne. So she said, I brought some into the world, and I'm going to be there when some leave this world. But when I was probably 4th or 5th grade, and even 6th grade, 7th grade, she would have me come up to Van Dyne just to sit with the old people. Now, did I always enjoy it? No. But you kind of learn that there's people that, man, they've got nobody, literally nobody in the world. And it was interesting to talk to them.
And it's not just, helpful to other people or impacting the people that you're directly working with, but what you get out of it yourself, too.
Absolutely.
It's great. I love going around smiling at people and being friendly to people. When I love calling customer service anytime I have an opportunity to call customer service rep or live chat, because it's an opportunity for me to be friendly.
Yeah. And you've said how much better service you get just by being nice.
I know. And I think it feels good to me because it's like I'm taking something that a lot of people think like, oh, I have to call customer service. And when you go into it like that, that's the type of energy you're putting out towards the situation. The other person's going to pick up on it. You're going to bring them down. You're bringing yourself down. You're probably not going to get what you want. And instead, you can cheer that person up, make their day a little bit better. Maybe they're having a long day. You can be that sunshine in their day, and you feel good, and you probably are going to get what you want. So
that's right.
It's win-win-win.
It certainly is a win-win-win. All of us get frustrated when we're trying to deal with people over the phone or something. But getting angry is going to get us nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can just put us on hold and laugh about it and then pick us up back and say, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Or we can just be understanding and say, listen, I'm certain that, this was a mistake. This was an error. What can you do to help? And it's tremendous in the different impact you can get.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think too is that when we focus on the negatives in our life, we start going down a spiral to negativity.
Mm-hmm.
If we can just get over ourselves and realize that we have nothing to complain about. The listeners hear I'm coughing again. And okay, yeah, and I've got one of my upper respiratory things again. But you know what? I can use my arm to cover my mouth when I cough. Nick can't.
Mm-hmm.
One of the quotes that I loved, just think of the impact about this. I may not have hands to hold my wife's hands. So he can't even hold his wife's hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need hands to hold her heart. That's what I'm going to hold.
Mm-hmm.
So he has gone out of his way to overcome a disability and leverage it for good. My dad told me when he came back from staying at Nick's house, and I'll never forget this, what happened, my dad was typing something, and my dad he cut part of one of his fingers off, his thumb, and so he's got big farmer hands, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but he's got big hands. Grew up on a dairy farm, and he worked with his hands a lot of his life, and he doesn't type well. And he was trying to type an email, and Nick was in the room with him, and my dad said, "Oh my goodness, these dumb fingers, they just don't want to work." He said, and then I realized this young man next to me not only doesn't have fingers, he doesn't have arms. And, my dad felt really bad, and Nick didn't think anything of it, He's also the type of person that would make a joke and say, well, Bob, I don't have problems with my hands, But my dad said that he would have a comb that was screwed onto a table so he could just kind of work his way over there and literally comb his hair without any hands. But we get so wrapped up in ourselves that we can't see really the blessings we do have, the opportunities we do have. And then the question then is, what are we going to do for other people? My point in this post was just stop being part of the problem and be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Fill social media with positive things. Things that are going well, catching people doing things right, not whining and complaining about, the service that you got. I've seen, I get so tired even of Facebook where people have to whine and complain about the service that they got at a store. You know what? Stop.
Mm-hmm.
You're not making yourself look any better by whining and complaining. You just become part of the problem. So if somebody wanted to volunteer, other than, let's say, one of my thoughts would be go to the United Way website.
Mm-hmm.
It'll show you some links. Any ideas that you have how could somebody find something?
Oh, I know there's a site that exists. Let me see if I can find it where you can search.
If you really want to be committed to a project, run for the school board.
Yeah. I think it's volunteermatch.org, maybe.
Okay.
Let me see. That's one that just came up. I'm not sure if this is the exact one I've used in the past, but I know these types of sites exist. United Way definitely has a lot of volunteer opportunities listed. But even just thinking about, we drive by these types of organizations all the time. I know Helping Hounds and animal shelters,
yes.
That's a great place for animal lovers. And bonus because you get to be around the cuddly animals.
Sure.
But I just think I'm a big fan of Google.
Rachel Hollis says you can Google and you can find anything you need free of charge on the internet.
Really? Yep. I think if you think about it too, when did this all get lost, right? When I was in school, this was part of what I had to do to graduate.
Right.
We had to do community service efforts, volunteer efforts, things like that. But it's funny because then we grow up and it's like it's lost.
Right.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Exactly.
And it's not about doing it perfectly or spending a ton of time volunteering or being on a board or anything like that. It's if we all did it imperfectly, we'd make a much larger impact than if, a handful of people did it perfectly.
Absolutely. If everybody just did a little bit,
mm-hmm.
this would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
The impact. One of the things, and I'm a bit idealistic, but I really believe that Central New York can be the best place in the country to live. And, our listeners have heard me talk about the fact that, the reason I do what I do is to change the focus of leadership in Central New York. Mm-hmm. But just think about the giving back piece, just helping people. Now, also, this would be a great thing for parents to do with kids that would be, let's say, 10 or 11 years old, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
As your kids get old enough, you take them with you.
Or younger. I mean, at the diaper bank, kids start volunteering at around age 5.
Wow, that's
some of
great.
what we do is counting things so they can count.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
So one of the things too, our PEB, our affiliate at MACNY, always needs mentors to work with city school kids. So, you can just, if anybody wants to just send us any information, email us and we will put you in contact with the folks at PEB if you'd like to be, a mentor for high school age kids. I'd also love it if people would send in ideas.
Yep.
Of what they can do to make a difference in Central New York. Because this is a great place to live. Mm-hmm. And what a great way to work your way through winter.
Yes.
Spending time adding sunshine to people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss anything?
One more thing came to mind was thinking about how we can encourage others at work. And especially with what you do with leaders, adding a little bit of encouragement to people's lives at work
Absolutely.
Is beneficial for the company. It's beneficial for the person.
Right.
And so I guess I'd be interested in what your thoughts were on that. A quick and easy way someone can do that.
Yeah, I think the first thing is that, leaders can't be moody. And I'm the poster child for wearing my emotions on my sleeves. And I have to really work hard at that. And sometimes I do better than others. There's days when I fail miserably and then I have to apologize to people. But just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean your people deserve to have one.
Mm-hmm.
So going out of your way to just be polite, to smile when you walk through the office or through the factory. It was interesting when, and those that have heard my story about my worst leadership failures, they would know that there were a couple years when I was just a mess, so to speak. And every time the people in the shop saw me, they thought I was angry. And it was just because I wasn't aware of what my expressions looked like. And once I was able to figure out what was wrong with me, one of our employees said to the owner, he said, "I don't know what you did to Dave, but he's back." It was that noticeable for people. So clearly, if you're a leader, if you've got people that report to you, be a leader, don't be a boss. Work on trying to make their days better. Everybody, Chris Hogan at Live to Lead said that if a leader does this twice a week to each of their direct reports, you make sure you make eye contact and you say, "How are you?" And he said, look at their eyes. Don't just listen to the words they say. Because their words may say fine, but their eyes may say something else. And if there's more, ask them, really, how are you? So how are you? What are you working on? And how can I help you? He said, if you ask those 3 questions of your direct report, he said, there isn't a recruiter in town that can take them away from you because you've just proven you have an interest in them as a human being. And if you have an employee that isn't measuring up, find the reason for it. Maybe they're in the wrong job, but rather than just be hard on them, try to be helpful to them And in some cases, even coach them to look for another job if that isn't their best place for them. So, I just think in the work environment, we have the greatest opportunity tomorrow or today, depending on what time of day you're listening to this, to begin to make a difference. Just don't be that ogre that walks around with a stick trying to get people to work. Be the encourager that gets people to want to work. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
oh yeah, definitely. That was great.
I mean, I think that is the fundamental responsibility of a leader. Napoleon, who had his failures, especially at Waterloo, said, leaders are dealers in hope. So if we're not inspiring our team to dream more, be more, we're not leading. Mm-hmm. We're failing them. That's quite a way of bringing me back to a leadership topic, isn't it? And I have no idea what we're talking about next week.
That was my next question.
I don't.
That's
but I'm kind of thinking maybe we need a series of some sort. So we'll see.
Okay. All right.
You like series. I know
I do.
So we'll have to, people will just have to listen next week and see what it is.
All right.
Any special plans coming up?
No, not really. Just, I'm still putting the house back together after the holidays.
Putting all the holiday decorations away and... Okay.
Just like getting things back in order and into a routine, which I've missed.
Back to the routine. Yes. As much as we love the holidays, the routines are comfortable. Mm-hmm. And holidays are enjoyable, but they're not necessarily comfortable. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm actually going to take a very, very quick trip down to Florida to visit my father-in-law.
Oh, how nice.
And my sister-in-law. So we're flying down on Friday, coming back on Monday. So it's quick.
Oh, well, enjoy the sun.
I will do that as best I can. So with that, I'm Dave Freund.
I'm Marisa Norcross.
And this was The Next Page.